Hey everyone, how's it going?
Hey.
Hello.
Hey.
Cool. Good to see everyone. Happy Tuesday. Let's go ahead and get started. But in kind of the spirit of Friends and Family Day, which is this week, I kind of wanted to check in and see how people are staying in touch with friends, family, and loved ones. My family, we're doing some unique things. We play a lot of cards. So we found a site, cardsmania.com, which allows us to play our family game, which is called Oh Hell. And we hop on a Zoom Friday and Saturday nights, and we play a game or two of cards, which is pretty fun. And then with my in-laws, I think I shared this a few weeks back. They'll come once every few weeks, and we'll fence off around them with caution tape, so that the kids don't run up to them, so they can see the kids and we can stay safe distance away. That's how we're staying in touch with our loved ones. Remy, what about you?
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, so for me, we do kind of regular meetings with some college friends from the masters. And yeah, that's fun. 2 weeks ago, we actually had a birthday party for one of them. So that was really fun to have a birthday party over a camera and a mic. And other than that, yeah, we are using WhatsApp quite a lot with my family otherwise. And this evening, we'll have a video chat with my mother and two brothers because my mother is retired since yesterday. So that's I'm super happy for her, and yeah, so we'll celebrate that this evening. Yeah, regarding the games, we played some games with my college friends, and we mostly played the Pictionary, when you have to draw something and the people have to guess what it is. So yeah, that was mostly it. I think that was quite funny. Yeah, what about you, Mark?
Yeah, mostly phone. We use Viber as well in my family, but the other thing we've been doing is games on the Xbox. So there's voice chat on the Xbox, but there's also this thing called Jackbox Party Games, which is pretty cool. So one person hosts the game, and then everyone else has a quiz kind of. Well, it's like a buzzer on your phone. So then you post in the answers, and you can do that privately on your phone, and then people get eliminated from the game. But you can do it with up to 8 players, and one person will host the actual game, and then everyone else will interact with it on their phone, which is pretty cool. So we've done that a few times. There's several games on there. There's about 4 or 5 different games. And just other general games on the Xbox have been good, ones that you can work together, cooperative games. But we haven't really done any Zoom meetings yet. My girlfriend's been doing a lot of quiz nights with colleagues and friends, but not really. My family haven't been introduced to Zoom yet. So, what about you, Albert?
Yeah, Jackbox TV is something that we used recently as well to play some games with friends. It was quite fun. I really like the user experience of that, of how one person is hosting, and then you can play like people can take part privately on their own phones, and then the host can share the game screen, and then the sort of game master is played through the host. So it's pretty cool. Yeah, then other than that, it's mostly Zoom. Like we tried having Skype calls with the extended family, For my wife, both my wife and my extended family. Initially we tried Skype, didn't work very well. And then the following week we switched over to Zoom. It was much better. Like we were able to see everyone instead of just like 4 persons in Skype. Yeah. How about Jianxin?
There is not much. I just go to where my mom lives regularly and chat with her. That's probably it.
Awesome. Thanks everybody for sharing. As I said, I kind of thought of this related to Friends and Family Day. So Friends and Family Day is Friday. Please take time to charge and relax, connect with loved ones. I think it's really cool that GitLab's doing this. So please take advantage of it. I know for some of you, that day is already a holiday. Let me know what replacement day that you have, and we'll make sure and get everything set up. Cool. The other thing that I wanted to call attention to, which was a change that just kind of like rapidly happened yesterday in Mac and my one-on-one, is average cost per pipeline is now a department KPI. And the target was adjusted to 125. So in discussion with Mac, we feel that this accurately represents our team's focus on efficiency, where we've kind of shifted focus away in some aspects from pipeline duration improvements towards general efficiency improvements and reducing that, like optimizing that number. And we adjusted the target to be ambitious like the other KPIs as well. Cool. The other thing I want to call attention to is I guess last week's meeting didn't record. I was unable to find it in my Zoom recordings. So my apologies for that. I think that was due to me updating the meeting and the settings not carrying over. So I updated this week's meeting, or sorry, the new repeating meeting to set everyone as hosts, so that you should be able to record and do everything that a host can do. If you observe that the meeting's not being recorded, please mention it or hit record, so we can get it posted to GitLab Unfiltered. Retrospective is next week, although the release is already over. Please update our 12.10 retrospective issue with anything that you thought went well, didn't go as well, could have been improved. I know that those are, we always feed a lot into the overall company retrospective. So I'd be really interested to see what everyone thinks this week or this release. And lastly, I changed this one around. So if you read ahead of time, I took out all the updates. The engineering key review is today. So this is a meeting that Mech does with all the exec team at GitLab, where they review the KPIs and provide an update from the last discussion. And as Mech and I were kind of going through the KPIs for the department, we saw improvement across the board. So I wanted to call attention to the great work that everyone's been doing on that. You can see the details in the agenda, which I've linked to, which should be public. And then there's also, Mech also recorded an update. It's available at the link that I sent there as well. Any other announcements that anyone would like to cover? Okay. All right. I'm actually going to share my screen for this next item real quick to talk through this. So Albert was talking with me about just how the OKRs are the change in the OKR and just OKRs in general that we're responsible for is still a little unclear. So I thought it'd be good to talk through it. I linked to the top issue that's used in GitLab.com for all of the OKRs. So this is an issue, so it shows up in the engineering management board. And then from here, this links to the department OKRs, which are epics, and the key result issues under those epics at the department level. So there's 3 department OKRs, and then each team has their own OKR. From an efficiency sake, from a tracking and updating perspective, this OKR at the department level is really owned by the engineering productivity team. And instead of duplicating it and having a team one that we would update and then feed into a department one, we're just going to track it at the department level within this epic and the KR. our team OKR down here is also the other one that we'll be focusing on. So these are the two OKRs that we'll focus in on. And then the KRs are all issues within those. So does that help kind of like provide some structure to this change? I know in the past we were using we were doing things a little bit differently. This quarter we switched to this, I'll say we switched to this structure just to try and be consistent across the engineering department. Okay. Sorry. I stopped sharing. If anyone did have a question or wants to continue looking, like Jinshin, I see you were looking closely as I stopped sharing.
Yeah.
Is that okay?
I wasn't really reading. It's fine.
Okay. I did link to the issue down below. Let me know if there's any questions. Feel free to ask in the issues as well if there's any questions, because it's likely if you have one, everyone else does. So cool. Okay. Moving on to the next item, Jinshin, do you want to talk about the namespace discussion?
Yeah. So Drago raised a proposal which we put various classes and modules into their own namespace, because for now, like we have CI namespace, and I think the major one might be the CI one, which had like pipeline and jobs built under CI, but there are also a lot of module classes which doesn't have namespace. And what Dragos is proposing that all modules we should use more namespaces. And sure, that's a good idea. And he's asking if we as a team want to take the ownership of this. And I'm just curious what else is thinking about this, because it feels like some other people are asking us, thinking that we should work on this, but I'm not sure if this is what we should be focusing on.
Albert, you go for it. I was gonna say, who wants to jump in first? Go for it.
He replied to my comment, so I thought okay, I don't know who should be or rather, okay, going back to the issue first, I think it's a good idea. It's definitely something beneficial. Whether our team should be the one that picks it up, takes responsibility of it, I'm not sure, because I think for one, it requires very in-depth knowledge of the code base to know how, like, what are the namespaces that should be, what makes sense, I think personally I don't know enough to make the right judgment. Maybe the team as a whole has enough knowledge. The other possibility I was thinking of is could maintainers be sort of driving this? I'm also not sure, because to me, like, maintainers would have the most in-depth knowledge of the entire code base. So I thought it could be something that be driven from a maintainer's perspective. I'm not sure.
That sounds good. Yeah. I think maintainer is probably that, like, maintainer reviews codes, and when they think that this keep this issue in mind, so they might see that there may be a namespace suitable for this, and then we can iteratively work toward this. Yeah, that's a good idea. I think I also have a more general question about this. Like, we also see some other requests like this from the past. Like, the code base should be organized in some other ways. And yeah, it's like, of course that's a good idea, but that's a lot of work, and and I'm not sure if the outcome is worth the effort. So I'm just curious how we should respond to this kind of request. Should we have some general idea about this, or just look at it case by case?
Yeah, I think usually the ideas that are proposed are good in general, but I don't think that we should be responsible for any of those. I think that the max that we can do is to like document these decisions and help communicate or educate people, but we shouldn't have, I don't think we should be owners of these ideas or even bottlenecks. I agree that each team has the knowledge about, for the specific like namespacing thing, I think each team is in a better place to just pick their namespace, of course. And for like general architecture style decisions, I think I trust the people at GitLab that have a good understanding of the whole code base to come up with good ideas. So yeah, I think we can be like we can support these proposals once they are like approved generally, but I think that should be it.
Yeah, I agree. With that specific one, I guess my concern areas were, do we have the knowledge to do this effectively? And it feels like we would be a bottleneck and distract, like we take away from other objectives to do this. And I think in general, with these type of changes, it makes more sense to me to have either the team, like the maintainer-based approach that Albert did, or even just like a team-based approach where if the CI team is like, it thinks that they would benefit from it, to start and maybe collaborate with the rest of the maintainers on a pattern for how to go through it. But I don't think this is an area that our team is responsible for taking on. And Albert, if you want me to, if you need help responding to Grzegorz, let me know. But what you said aligns with what I believe. So
yeah,
cool.
Yeah, I will share this like my thoughts like on the issue.
Yeah. And and feel free to, you can also link to the agenda. It's public for everybody, just to show that we discussed it if you want. So it's up to you.
Yeah,
it is public. So yeah.
Sure.
Cool. Thanks for bringing it up, Jinshin. Remy, over to you about danger.
Yeah. So yeah, just a small thing about danger, because I noticed that regularly people complain on Slack most of the time, and they tend to consider danger like something that is, I don't know, out of the project, like it's just annoying them, but they won't create issue or even like update it. I think it's almost like a rant now at this point. No, it was just something that I noticed. There's nothing that we can really do at the moment, I think, other than probably improving the documentation and I don't know, iterating on like improving the small things that are reported on a case-by-case basis. And I don't know. I don't really have.
I think we can update the danger message to add wording that danger is implemented in this directory, and if you have anything to discuss about creating an issue, and we can work on it.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah. Fortunately, Danger is a bot, so it's fine. People can complain. No one will be offended.
Yeah, I feel some people would treat it like a strict rule. So whenever they cannot follow it, they feel frustrated.
Yeah, and I think there's also some confusion because recently I think we made some rules only warnings or even just like messages instead of failures. So and I actually went in the backlog of issues about Danger, and there were a few issues that we actually solved or that weren't relevant anymore. So yeah, that's definitely something to improve, I think. And I think your suggestion could be a good first step.
Yeah. Thanks for jumping in on that Slack message. I originally was thinking exactly what you reported is my understanding of how it should work. Like Danger shouldn't fail MR if squash is enabled. It should provide a warning. But the other questions that Scott posed were same sort of things that came up in the discussing that overall rule, I would say, or similar things that came up on that when we had the big issue to discuss that, which was fun on its own. So yeah, I think improving documentation, directing, pointing people to the directory would help as well, or could help. But I'm a little frustrated that these things mostly come up on Slack instead of an issue. So thanks for nudging to create an issue on that as well.
Yeah, that was that was what triggered me to create this point in the agenda. people complain in Slack, but yeah, just please create an issue.
Yep. Okay. That's something I'll try to do better, is just direct people to an issue when things like that come up on Slack too. So thank you. Cool. All right. So the next item, I was just checking time because I imagine we'll all have some thoughts on this as well, is related to the original remove backstage label issue that I think Albert and Remy have helped collaborate on. I do want to say my original intent with this was to try and just get my thoughts out related to the KR and incorporate some of the messages that I was hearing from I'll say the leadership change. So as I've kind of shared with some of you, this originally kind of rolled Sid to Eric to Mech to me into that issue very rapidly without a lot of context, really just the specific ask of let's delete backstage. Which led to me trying to figure out why would that make sense. I did create the issue with that, and I think there was a lot of missing context and confusion in this issue from the start. So I do want to apologize for that. Some of the things I want to call attention to is why this, I'll say this has gotten so much attention, is with backstage being a large proportion of the overall MRs that are done on a monthly basis. Directors are asking engineering managers, hey, just for example, 60% of your MRs are backstage. What value was created with that work? And we're not really providing a systematic way of providing engineering managers that information. I think that's one of the things where when I say improve visibility into what backstage is, or really what any throughput type is, that's the objective that we're trying to do, is help equip that next level questions, the next level of questions that are being asked. Now, where I was confused is when I started looking at backstage MRs, I see a number of the assumptions that I was making where refactor, technical debt, I'll say dependency updates, even pipeline changes do not relate to backstage at all. So Remy detailed this really well in his comment, but it was 45 to 60% of the overall MRs seem to fit in this other category when we start pulling off other issues. And that was surprising. That was surprising to me. So that's a lot of, I'll say that's a lot of the background that led into the issue and where we're at now. I want to try and work on how do we move forward towards our Q2 OKR on this. I did try to update the plan last night to really expand this out to be a subtype for more than just Backstage, because I think that visibility is missing on all of them. It's just surfacing for Backstage because it's the largest proportion of the MR throughput chart. And where I'm at right now is migrating what is in Backstage, some of what's in Backstage, to a differently named label, and then improving nudges, tooling, and guidance for all throughput types. So having that taxonomy, there's the proposal in that issue that, again, I tried to be as specific as I could, but I'm curious what other people's thoughts on this are. Remy, if you want to get started, since you added your comment down there.
Yeah, so I put a lot of thoughts on this. So basically, my take on this is that we should basically split the Backstage label into more specific scoped labels, or even not scoped. But what I mean is that we should document and make clear what are the limits of Backstage, what are the kind of Backstage change. For instance, technical depth, CI config, test, architecture, dependency update, danger about static analysis. In my mind, it's all of that is Backstage, and everything else, or maybe I'm missing a few categories, but basically the idea is to say that instead of putting everything under Backstage and without no details, let's pick a specific Backstage type. And I think the good thing about that is that people will start using Backstage for groundwork for feature change, like refactors, or the kind of change that aren't visible to the end user but are actually building blocks for a feature. These are not Backstage work, and it's also in line with our throughput definition where we say that any work that is towards a feature isn't Backstage, but it's a feature work. And the next idea is that we could do the kind of the same thing for feature, like scoping the feature into like feature groundwork, feature I don't know, feature front end, feature UX. I don't know about that, but yeah, that's my take on it. And then there's the debate about Backstage or not. Like, do we need to change the terminology?
That's the part that I would like people's thoughts on. So my apologies for not being clear on that ask. So where I'm at on changing the term is, I think foundation is the more commonly encountered term that kind of represents how I see Backstage, is it's like critical for the things that the user sees to be successful. Backstage represents that, but I think it's just encountered less frequently in like general terminology. So that's where I think Backstage is more relatable, especially in my comment that I had about external parties, which was something I hadn't really considered until after the one-on-one with Mech yesterday. That's why I think that. I also think it'll help with retraining behaviors. So like that switch, the hard switch, will really help enable us to retrain some of the, like exactly what you just talked about, where groundwork for features are really labeled as Backstage right now, but we need to encourage that to be labeled as feature groundwork or something related to feature, so that it's getting accounted for, I think, in the right throughput type.
Is there a need to retrofit this? Are people interested in what happened, or are people just interested in what's happening going forward? So we're going to still have this Backstage section in the throughputs list that accounts for however many merge requests in a release. But going forward, we're going to keep the umbrella term and break it down. So that stack's broken down somewhat, but the historical charts will still just maintain Backstage or whatever this label maybe changes into. Yeah.
So I would like to see us get everything consistent and retrofit it. I think that's easier to say than to do. It's much easier to say, like clearly. But
yes.
But I don't think that's necessarily a part of the initial implementation. I'd be okay with Backstage existing in the same way that it does, but I'd like to look towards how can we retrofit.
Right. And so we if that is the case, we still do need this overarching term, whether it's foundation or some other term that fits, because there's going to be a huge amount of MRs which will still have this information that still needs to be maintained going forward. But in general, I think it's a really great idea to, be able to break things down more than they currently are in the high level overview. Because I feel that Backstage does collect a lot of stuff right now, and they might be, just add in like the back end stuff for a feature flag or something like that, which just doesn't fit anywhere else. And I do wonder if we didn't have Backstage, what would have been added in its place. Yeah.
Mark, one of the things that we just talked about, I think is really interesting here. So Mark was doing some analysis on other projects to see if there's a similar label. And it was brief analysis. I think we need to dive into this a little bit more.
Yeah, just to see if there was a conventional label. So we tend to use conventions for our labeling for certain things. But certain open source projects do have labels that they go to, but I couldn't find anything which fits Backstage. There was a lot of terms that would maybe fit into our subtypes. So maybe like technical debt. That was one that I saw a few times, but there wasn't any kind of overarching one which we do have. I mean, it'd probably take a bit more investigation to see whether there is a general type for these types of changes, but at a quick glance I couldn't find anything similar that we could just use to mirror those other projects and take that idea from there.
Yeah, but the terminology, I'm open to change Backstage. Don't get me wrong, but I think foundation is not the right term. Like foundation to me is like the building blocks, the base for building all the rest on top of it. But you could build features without the CI technically. And so I put that in my last comment. Basically, to me, Backstage is about maintenance, quality and consistency, and reliability. And so I would like to find how I see it is that the feature teams are not on the Backstage shoulders, but we are holding hand, like we are making sure that the feature work is maintainable in the long term, is not breaking everything, is adhering to the architecture guidelines that we have and all of that, and merge request quality, etc. So we are, I mean, not we especially, but the Backstage, as I see it, is really like side by side with feature work. And I would like to have a term that does not imply that we are under feature or something like that. Like run work or foundation is not a good term. And I think in the design project, they are using foundation really as building blocks, like typography, colors. I don't know what else, but it's really building blocks in that case. And that I think that doesn't apply to the Backstage as I see it.
I see.
Do we think that some merge requests are incorrectly being classified as Backstage right now? And if we increased, say, the subtypes for feature, that they would fall out of Backstage and into maybe one of these subtypes for feature instead?
I think so. And incorrectly might not be the right term, but I think
Yeah. There's
ground,
nowhere
like
else.
feature, yeah, exactly. Feature groundwork, what would fall in that category seems to be ending up in Backstage.
Right.
When I'm looking at it.
Yeah, but I think many many of the current Backstage merge requests are would still fall under Backstage. Like I saw that there are many merge requests that, for instance, add or updates tests, and technically that would fall under the Backstage test category. But you could also argue that tests are part of the feature. So, I mean, that's a choice to make. It's not like, at some point we'll have to make a choice like, is test part of the feature or not? That's another debate.
And the bug in the test.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I wonder whether it's enough to only add the Backstage labels without these other ones to fall back on, or whether it has to all be done at once. Because where are the Backstage ones that don't fit into these subcategories going to go?
So that's a good question. My original thoughts are there would still be this high level type that would almost replace, and then it would just be the absence of a subtype. So we would try, if we're looking at existing MRs, we would apply a subtype where it was clear, and the absence of it would indicate that it's not. And then go forward, that's where we would encourage application of subtype and infer the general type. I don't know. I mean, we still need a lot of work on that. Those details, I would say.
The lack of a subtype is information in itself that we need more. We need more labels to classify. So, yeah,
Remy, I definitely see your point of foundation giving the indication that it's beneath the other types of changes versus like in collaboration. I think that's something that I consider as you and I talked about yesterday too. I've gone back and forth on this terminology thing, and I don't know. I can't think of like a term that kind of represents what we're looking to do on this. That satisfies everything.
Yeah, that's why I initially suggested to just keep Backstage and split it at least. But I also see the point of wanting to move away from it completely.
So if we keep it, I would like to be really clear on how we're going to leverage tooling and automation to help ensure better, more accurate application of it, I would say, so that we're breaking those habits. Like that's the thing that I think we can make the case a little bit better than just like we're keeping it and trying to add a new taxonomy. If we add a new taxonomy and do A, B, C, D to help ensure compliance, I think that would be a good approach too.
Yeah, we need to keep the label anyway for the charts for historical data. So I think in any case we'll need to keep Backstage and add like deprecated in uppercase, you know. So we could. A boring step would be to keep that, and every time someone adds this label, we could post a message with triage serverless to say, hey, please don't use this label. Please choose a specific label. Or maybe you are actually doing a like feature groundwork work or whatever. But yeah, that's my take.
Yeah. So I'm going to continue to give that thought. I'd welcome thoughts in the issues on that line of, because that's really, I think the point that we're at in the proposal is if we keep Backstage, how are we going to help ensure better consistency within the taxonomy through tooling? And if we change it, what is a term that makes sense? I think the first problem is easier to solve, keeping Backstage and trying to figure out how we do it, than what is a new terminology. Naming things is hard.
Yeah.
So
just to add on, so I think the first problem gives us more immediate value, because I think the problem we have right now is that a lot of Backstage MRs are not don't have enough additional context to them that we are able to identify what kind of change Backstage change it is. So I think keeping Backstage minimize the number of change that we need to do, and then we can focus on getting a finer, more granular information of these changes, rather than having to figure out what a new name is, and then after that, so that alone is a difficult problem, and then beyond that, we still encounter the same problem of
I see.
Insufficient information.
Yeah. Okay.
Insufficient granularity.
Okay. So I think what I will do is summarize this discussion, see if we can get some thoughts from Mac, maybe some of the others on that in the issue, to say we kind of are at a fork here. We realize that changing the term is going to help with new behaviors, as well as potentially improve clarity to additional parties, which we weren't considering. Mm-hmm. But in the spirit of iteration, we feel that adding a new taxonomy, adding tooling to help ensure that taxonomy is being followed, and nudging MRs into the right category may be a better first step, because it's less work, and it'll help us be able to better measure, are we doing better on our objective than what we previously were? Does that sound good?
Yeah, I think that sounds okay to me.
I do appreciate all the feedback and discussion on this. Like I said, my intent was to try and get it in a better state and then share it with the team, but I think we got to that better state much faster. So I don't want to really work like that anymore. That was a good lesson learned for me in this situation. I know we're a little over on time. Jinshin, do you want to talk about this next week, or is everyone okay to stay on and talk about the high priority merge request process?
I think it's just more for your information, and if anyone have any idea, we can talk, but I'm fine without discussing it.
Okay, cool. All right, that is great. So thanks for the good discussion. I probably won't update the issue because this is the time when I run around with the kids for an hour or two. So I'll get the issue on Backstage, the general changes updated here in a few minutes. Or a few hours, sorry.
Cool.
Okay. See you, everyone. Thanks for the good discussion, good meeting. Have a good rest of your day.
Thanks. Have a good day.
Bye.